And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Friday morning. Yes, a feel-good Friday heading into this March weekend. Boomer's back at his office hacking up. He's still got that phlegm thing going on. But I told him, I said, I don't want to hear about it today. It's a feel-good Friday. So you get all that phlegm out of you, you get that Mucinex kickstart going, because we've got 4 hours of Feel Good Friday coming up. The Islanders are hot. To sneak that in there before you got your headsets on. But you are a quarterback whisperer. You are someone who can take a look at one of these guys and know immediately whether or not they're going to be a star. You had Patrick Mahomes in here. You loved him. You got close enough to Josh Allen to smell him, and you loved him. He just had the musk about him. His pheromones told you he was going to be a good quarterback. And the reason I bring this up is Caleb Williams is going in the opposite direction with people, and Taylor Lewan, who played a long time in the NFL as a left tackle, now has a popular podcast with Barstool, basically just slammed this dude. Said he had a terrible vibe from him during the combine. He has this I'm better than you attitude. We know he didn't do any medical stuff. We know he didn't throw. And we know that this is someone that, throughout this past year has seemed like he's better than the process. So are the Bears about to select one of these guys that doesn't love ball is going to be a bust? Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. It is Feel Good Friday, and I have to say that I agree with Taylor Lewan, and I have respect for Taylor Lewan because he's been in the trenches. He knows exactly what he wants from his quarterback, and this is the thing that I worry about Caleb Williams. Now, the Bears are still going to draft him. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to draft him. I still believe they're going to draft him, and I do believe that he is a generational talent. I really do. And I know that there are some out there that don't feel the same way, and that's fine. That they can feel that way. I mean, that's what this is all about, is trying to figure out, who do we think is really going to be a good player. And, you're starting to read some of the reports that came out of the combine about a lot of these guys. But Taylor, just gave you his heartfelt, what I think, assessment of what he saw over the weekend of the combine. And he was not happy with what he saw from Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb has done some really weird things. He's painted his fingernails before a game against Utah. And he had the words F Utah on his fingernails. I wouldn't consider that. That would be not a shining moment for him. Al brought up the fact that he jumped into the crowd and he started crying in his mom's arms after they lost a big game. And you remember Al said he'll never make it in the NFL because of that one situation. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that he is going to have a very eye-opening experience once he steps on the NFL football field, because I have a feeling that Taylor Lewan is not the only one who feels this way. And what I mean by that is that there are going to be guys going after him. If he is given these gyrations off, and this is to Taylor, who used to play and covers the league and has very thoughtful comments, which I thought this was, even though they were negative, they weren't out of the blue just to make news.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt. And if you watch the clip, you can tell that he's just being honest about it, and he's not a guy who wants to trash some kid who's coming out of the draft. He's just telling you how he felt. And I don't even know if it was a full trashing. It was just, hey, this is the vibe that I got from him, and it was a bad vibe. And I don't feel like these unanimous number one overall picks that we have had in the past have had this type of thing around them. For example, I guess the last guy who was selected number one overall quarterback that had some of those personality questions around him, I think, was Kyler Murray. Is that fair? Personality questions, not talent questions.
Yeah, I remember he brought the Heisman into the NFL today, and we were all shocked at how small he was. But when we were talking to him, he told us the reason that he was most likely, at that time, he hadn't made his decision yet, baseball or football.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this, where Phil and I are sitting there talking to him, and he goes, man, there's nothing like running out in front of 90,000 people and being the man. And we both said that's the feeling that we all had, and he has that same feeling. So he felt like he was going to be a kid that was going to love the game and was going to be great. Now, he kind of lost his way early on, like some guys do. and now he's trying to get it back. And maybe he'll get it back with, better players around him, a new coach, and everything else. And I thought he played okay last year. I didn't think he was great. But maybe this year, a year removed from that knee injury, he'll be a lot better. So I wouldn't necessarily put him in that kind of category. I think the last guy that I can remember where, I believe he was a consensus number one, but there were all sorts of issues around him and who he was Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, but was he a consensus number one in that draft?
I felt like that everybody was had him going number one. Size, arm strength, college success, everything that you want. They did all their background checks, all their meetings with him, and this is what NFL teams are afraid of. They're afraid of getting a guy who is not really focused in on being the best that he absolutely can be. And this is why when you hear all of these players now talking, especially the quarterbacks, they're all talking as if they're Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Like, I love ball. I love talking, strategy. I love getting up on the whiteboard. This is what you're hearing now because they're all being told to say those things. So the team that drafts them knows that they are so-called, air quotes, all in.
Yeah, and he must have been a consensus pick because looking back on that draft,
yes.
he was drafted first overall quarterback. There wasn't a quarterback taken until 22 after that in Brady Quinn. And there's a lot of Hall of Famers in that 2007 draft.
Yes.
Two of them came right after Jamarcus Russell and Calvin Johnson and Joe Thomas. And then you also had, Marshawn Lynch not a Hall of Famer, but he was in that draft. Darrelle Revis, Hall of Famer in that draft.
Here's what we do know. Most likely, the top three quarterbacks, we're lucky if we get one that actually pans out to become something.
Yeah.
And that one is supposed to be Caleb Williams. He's supposed to be this can't-miss player. And if you do watch him and you do watch the tape on him, I mean, he does a lot of things on a football field that are really special. And it looks like he belongs out there. It looks like he's been waiting for this. It looks like it does remind me a little bit of the way that Patrick Mahomes used to play when he was in college. And then, of course, he had to get refined under Andy Reid. I think a lot of this is going to depend on, and, going to Chicago, let's say he goes there. They got a new offensive coordinator. They have a plethora of players. They have an opportunity to add a wide receiver in this draft with him, maybe a Roma Dunze, because they also have another top 10 pick. So there's a lot of upswing and upside for him and an opportunity to be successful. But as we sit here right now, I think if Taylor Lewan says what he says and says it how he says it, hey, I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't care how talented you are. If you walk into the NFL in that first year and you think that you're better than everybody, first thing that you're going to do is piss off your coaches. The second thing you can do is piss off your teammates. And the third thing you can do is get your ass kicked out there because the NFL is not college football. And you hear all these guys. I thought I was the man in college, and, yeah, I played in the SEC. The NFL is just a different place than what I was used to. So I think it's a little bit scary. I mean, I would be – it was a lock so much so going into this past season that you thought whoever got that number one overall pick, it was sort of like the way we used to talk about Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence. I still think the Bears will take them, but the Bears are still holding on to Justin Fields.
The one thing about Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck was nobody questioned who they were as people. Like, nobody thought that they walked into a room and like, hey, my crap doesn't stink.
Yeah.
I'm not going through the medicals. I'm not throwing. I'm not doing it.
I'm not hiring an agent.
Right. Everybody knew that these guys were going to be the number one overall pick. And by the way, did you get close to Trevor Lawrence at the Breitling event?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you believe how big that guy is?
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I was stunned. Like, I've seen him before, but when I met him, he was like a skinny kid in college.
Yeah, I've never met – I said this the day after. I've never met a man that big with such a feminine face. That was what struck me, that he was so big, so muscular, so tall, but so delicately featured with his head, his face, and his hair. I mean, it was amazing.
So if you were drafting him, you would not have drafted him number one because of his feminine features?
No.
You think those feminine features are accentuated by the fact that he has glorious locks?
Yes, it is. And
okay.
of course I would have drafted number one overall. I thought it was devastating when the Jets ended up winning that game out in L.A. against the Rams to knock them down to number 2. It was just an observation that he generally you see a football player like that, big, grizzled, sort of like in your face, like a young Bill Cowher, chin out.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever he's doing, moisturizing or what. I mean,
moisturizing.
He
doesn't have to moisturize. He's 25 years old.
He's keeping. I don't know what it is, but
I have to moisturize.
He is stunningly. He was. Dare I say, beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. He was.
I mean, it was that. That's what and I just never saw a man that large with that type of head.
So of course, I hadn't seen him in a while. I've interviewed him a few times, but I haven't seen him in person in a while. So you go up there and I just started feeling around the shoulder.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, this guy is a freaking rock, man.
I know, and it's too bad that he got hurt at the end of last year.
He is big.
Had a disappointing season this year because he went in, he was one of these sort of long shot MVP candidate guys, and it just didn't work out. Then he had the injury. Then I think he came back a little early from the injury.
He had 2 injuries.
Yeah, so but the second one, that ankle one where he was limping off the field and came back maybe a little early from that, but
he's no Patrick Mahomes.
No, obviously not. And who is right now?
Nobody.
Is that question. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of alarm bells going off with Caleb Williams, and I don't know if it's going to get to the point. It sounds crazy to think that the Bears would take somebody else, but
all right, let me ask you this question. Like really quickly, and I know it's a sports talk thing. It's a Feel Good Friday, but I want to ask you this question: who is the best quarterback right now in the National Football Conference?
Oh, the NFC.
The NFC. Who is the best quarterback? Is it Brock Purdy? Is it Matthew Stafford? Is it Jared Goff?
Is
Is it Jordan Love? Is it Jalen Hurts?
Am I allowed to say Kirk Cousins?
Is it Kirk Cousins? Yeah. Well,
because he's hurt.
Yeah, but right now he's not.
No, I'll tell you who it is. I got the answer. It's Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott.
That's the answer.
All right. So now the point that I'm making is that Caleb Williams is going to go to Chicago, and I think he's good enough and confident enough to actually take the starting role week 1.
I mean, is there a big difference though between confident and cocky?
I think you got to have a little of that. He's got a little of that red ass, a little of that chip on his shoulder, and I think that he thinks that he belongs. Like Patrick Mahomes knew he belonged. It was just a matter of just getting to the right team and getting there.
Yeah, but remember,
and getting the opportunity.
Right, and he believed that. But the talk around him was that his mechanics were terrible, his footwork was terrible.
At a crappy school and running for his life.
But this is what people were saying at the time, and they were dead wrong about it. But I mean, the difference is that Patrick Mahomes came into the NFL after dropping and then getting selected where he was, and even some people thought it was a reach going to the Chiefs where he did, with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Whereas Caleb Williams doesn't have that. Caleb Williams is walking around going, "I'm going to own this league."
Well, I mean, we're gonna Johnny Manziel. We're gonna rip up the league, and that part of it I don't like. But I will say that he's got to have that confidence, and he looks older because of the beard and everything.
Yeah,
and he just kind of looks more mature to me. I wish I could sit here and talk to him and find out a little bit more about him, and maybe behind the scenes, it's a little bit different than the way Taylor Lewan felt about him. But he's the unquestioned number 1 pick. I'm just telling you that.
So there's nothing that can come out of the combine or anything leading up to the draft that you think is going to knock the Bears off this guy?
No.
I mean, I think that could be a mistake, though. So, because I know you, and I feel like if you were dead set, even if you watch the film, if you got a really bad vibe from a guy, you would not want to make him the face of your franchise.
I mean, I got a bad vibe from him because of what he said and how he said it
but I'm
at
talking
the
about
combine.
Meeting him, because you always say sitting down with the guy, looking him in the eyes and all that stuff. And if you walked away from that conversation with I don't care how talented he is, this guy's not all in, you wouldn't draft him. So I would imagine there are NFL general managers that are like that. Now I got to deal with his dad instead of an agent. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do that. He's not even an NFL player yet, and he's the biggest pain in the ass that we have on the team, and he's not even on the team. This
is one of the things why Nick Saban ended up quitting at Alabama, because the players are different now. The players are making tons of money. The players have expectations. The players are privileged, especially at this level, at that high of a level. he left Oklahoma to go to USC. He was living in a condo off campus, driving a Maybach. I mean, it's just like Deion Sanders' kid at Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are legitimately professional players and are treated as such and are already making money at a very, very young age. Many of us, we never had that opportunity. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad or it's good. I think it's bad overall, but I think you're just dealing with a different personality type now.
Yeah, but not everybody is like that. Not every top
I don't
pick
think
is
Drake
coming
May
out.
is that way, but Drake May, by the way, ended up staying at North Carolina because they came up with $5 million.
Yeah, which is great. Good for him.
Because one of those SEC bandit schools came after him.
Yeah, I mean, and good for him, and take advantage of those situations. But it's one thing to get paid a lot of money. It's another thing to have it affect your personality and make you feel like you've earned it already. It doesn't stop here. It starts here, and it's almost like Caleb Williams thinks that he's made it already. I mean,
at least in the eyes of Taylor Lewan.
I mean, he's not the only one though. I mean, some of the stuff that he has said along the way. Now, I know he's cleaned that up and said he'd be excited to be drafted by anybody. But this whole I'm not hiring an agent thing, too, and my dad's going to handle everything, because that works out great.
Well, the deal is that if he's picked number one overall, they know what the number is. He's slotted. He doesn't need an agent for that. What he needs a marketing agent, to make sure he gets all of his endorsements and things of that nature. And Chicago's been longing for a star of this magnitude for a long, 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 long time at quarterback. And I know Justin Fields is a really good quarterback. He can play in this league. It's just that this kid is, in the eyes of many, one of these generational players that comes along. And I said this last year, during the season that, he was going to be the number one pick no matter who was going to be up there, and or somebody would give a haul to go up there and go get him. And believe me, when I say this, if in fact Chicago is having second thoughts, there are people that are willing to mortgage their future to get their hands on this kid.
Yeah, of course, and that I would certainly imagine. But I mean, the longer that Justin Fields trade is not happening,
I mean, Aaron Rodgers didn't get traded until the week of the draft.
But that was a little bit different though, because there was so much money involved, and they were hanging on, and there was only one team that he wanted to go to, and the Packers didn't want to cave, and all that crap. I mean, that was a little more complicated.
The Packers were going to end up moving him eventually, and I think they were jerking not the Jets around. I think they were jerking Aaron Rodgers around.
Yeah, I mean, they just wanted to get a pound of
flesh.
flesh.
I think Ryan Poles is going to want to do right by Justin Fields, and he has actually said that. So I would think that we'll get a trade before the draft, significantly before the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen in the next. It may happen right before free agency. You know what I mean? So one of these teams knows exactly who their quarterback is going to be, and I still really do believe it's going to be the Raiders.